Hey guys, welcome into Sports Around the Bar, your weekly sports talk show. As always, I am Jake, your bartender, and I'm joined on center stool by my co-host Drew, and today we have a lot of football to talk about. We're getting there, man. We're getting there. I can almost taste it.
What can you taste?
Football.
Oh, you probably
Big skin.
You probably shouldn't put that in your mouth. As you can tell, we are not using the face app and becoming old. We are just naturally this old.
Yeah, we're glad you took a break from plotting to storm Area 51 and planning what you're going to look like when you get old if you survive that raid to hang out with us. So we are glad you guys are here. We can't wait to talk about everything going on. We're going to start with Zeke holding out for the Cowboys potentially, just like his buddy Melvin Gordon out there in San Diego, or L.A. I'm still doing it. We're also going to talk about Chris Paul and why the Thunder are having a hard time moving him on and why it might have been a bad idea to make that move to send Russell Westbrook out there for just 2 first-round picks, like I said. That's okay. We're not being overly critical of that. We're also going to talk about a quick contract extension for Deion Jones out there in Atlanta. It's going to be good. They're keeping their middle linebacker at home for the next couple of years. We'll talk about him too. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and their 2019 season. It's going to be funny. That's all I can say. I can't promise it'll be good, but I can promise you'll laugh.
What's going on, Ian? And no boo Steelers.
Always good to see you, man. Well, we'll start with Zeke. Let's start with the Cowboys news.
That old LL mid-20s. He's mid-20s.
I'm late 20s these days. I'm old, Drew.
Dude, I was trying to help you out.
I know. Thank you. Thank you. I'll always be mid-20s in my mind. But we'll start with Zeke, and we'll make all these Cowboys fans happy. I know they love talking about the Cowboys. This might not be the kind of news you want to talk about, though, because now Zeke is talking about holding out of his contract and not coming to play for the Cowboys until he gets a new deal. Do these running backs have the sort of leverage to hold over their team's heads where they're going to be able to get away with it, or are we going to see a Le'Veon Bell situation where the teams don't blink?
I mean, yeah, they do have the leverage. It's their body. It's their right to play or not, and they have a right to hold out. I mean, that's just what, you do. But does it put them in the right position to get what they exactly want? Le'Veon Bell worked out. He got paid. I don't know if the Jets were his destination that he wanted to choose from, but he for sure got paid.
Yeah, no, he did. Le'Veon Bell got paid. He moved on to the Jets, and we have to see whether that case study actually worked out. They're planning on holding out here because they're coming off their rookie deals, and they feel when I'm getting hit 300 times a year and getting mauled on almost every play, or at least half of them in an NFL game, I want to get paid to do it. I don't want to get paid a few $1 million, have you use me up, and then kick me to the curb. I understand the want for loyalty. I understand that you want to be paid while you're still valuable because you can take one bad hit as a running back more than any other position on the football field and be out of the game.
Sonny wants us to do the Tampa Bay stuff first.
Do you want to do the Tampa Bay stuff first?
I don't care. It's helping them out.
We can do the Tampa Bay stuff first, man. All right, this one's for you, Sonny. We'll go into Tampa Bay first. We'll talk about Zeke later and whether he should do that. We're not going to glance over at Cowboys fans. We will get back to that. Let's start with Tampa Bay.
Let's do it.
First off, they did one thing well. And when I say that, I usually mean one side of the ball. But in Tampa Bay, I literally mean one thing, which was throw the rock.
That's it.
They aired the ball out. They were the number one passing offense in the entire game all last year. Better than the Chiefs, better than the Rams. These teams that we're talking about being the most prolific offenses. They had more yardage than those two teams did or anyone else did in the NFL. That's impressive.
No, it really is. What's going on, Danny? Glad you could join us. No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, when this team started week 1, they kind of, in a sense, lit the world on fire. Fitzmagic was a thing. It was fun to watch. He was sitting there lighting up. But what do they do in this offseason to help that out, to get better? Because that's what off seasons are about, right? It's about getting rid of what didn't work and adding in what wasn't there, or to get better at what you were doing.
Absolutely, it's about retooling, and they didn't even do that. They didn't get better. They didn't retool the offense and bring in equal pieces and say, we'll try it with these guys instead. Maybe things turn out better. In fact, the exact opposite happened. They had no money going into it. They had the least amount of money out of any team in the NFL, and they acted like it. They did very little free up space. They had to trade Gerald McCoy to sign their first-round pick, Devin White. They didn't have enough money. They didn't plan far enough ahead to have enough money to sign these free agents. What? Who's running the show in Tampa Bay? Man. And why do I like this team, Drew?
I don't know why you like this team. That's what that's what I'm thinking about right now. It's like, this guy likes Tampa Bay.
I'm going to go through this quick because there were a lot of things that they did not do well in 2018. It starts with the running game. For being the third overrated offense in the NFL, they were 29th in the run. They could not run the ball on the ground at all. The offensive line was not particularly special, being somewhere down in the 20s. And then the defense, 27th overall, 26th against the pass, 24th against the run. They could not stop anybody in the air. They couldn't stop anybody on the ground. They couldn't generate turnovers because they were 31st in that, finishing minus 18. Drew, it takes talent to be that bad, I think.
Yeah,
How did they not get the first pick?
I don't even know. Alice, I'm glad you could join us, man. Welcome to Sports Around the Bar. I hope you enjoy yourself. Feel free to comment, add into what we're discussing, and of course, comment and discuss with the rest of the commentators. These guys,
absolutely,
they've been around the block, especially Ian and Sonny. They've been around. Tell us what you think.
Absolutely, we always want to hear from you. Also, we're starting with Tampa Bay. Normally, we leave the NFL team to the end of the episode, but Sonny's got something going on, so we're more than happy to move it to the front for him. Look, before we move on, Drew, before we go into these adds and subtractions, I just want to... Well, no, let's start by doing that. They lost Adam Humphries. I'm going to talk about the receiving group first. They lost Adam Humphries, and they lost Deshaun Jackson on the outside. This was their best thing. This is the bread and butter, right? We can only do one thing, and it's throw the ball. And then they kicked Adam Humphries to the curb. They lost Deshaun Jackson to a trade with the Eagles because he wasn't happy anymore. We're talking about replacing 107 receptions, 1,590 yards, and 9 touchdowns between those two guys. Do you know who they brought in to do it?
That's an all-pro receiver.
That's like the best receiver in football. That's like Michael Thomas receptions and Julio Jones in yards that you just kicked to the curb, and they brought in Brashad Perriman to make things right. Brashad, I never was good enough to make it to the Ravens. I had like 3 or 4 good plays with Cleveland last year. Perriman.
It's an even something.
Yeah, exactly. I think they'll be fine. No, they're not. They're going to take a small step backward in the passing game, even though I think they're going to be able to throw still. They still got Goodwin, or Godwin, however it's pronounced. They still have Mike Evans, and then their 2 tight ends in Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard. They've got guys who can catch the ball. But you went from having 6 or 7 guys who could be impact players to now you got 3 or 4. You're going to take a small step back.
And they didn't really bring anyone in to replace any of that talent in the receiving core to go away. It's definitely a struggle. Alex says, well, the Bucs had 2 starting quarterbacks last year.
That's another thing I was going to get to.
That's
of that 5,000 yards. Yeah, I know. Perfect. Great segue. You're a pro at this, man. The reason why they had the number 1 rated passing offense is because they had 2 guys who did really well. Fitzpatrick, for their 5,000 yards they threw for, or slightly over, I think it was like 5,100, threw 2,366 of those yards in, 4 or 5 weeks? I think he came back and played 2 games, so I think he got like 6 starts.
Right. I can't remember now.
Yeah, you're losing out on all that. You're losing out on the 17 touchdowns he threw. And who did they replace him with? Blaine Gabbert. I'm a Titans fan. Let me tell you, Blaine Gabbert, not good enough replacement, okay? He's not a guy that you want to have come off the bench when your starter gets hurt. And Jeremy, good to see you, man. I got to say this. Do you just roll with Blaine Gabbert? Or do you just give up with Jameis Winston if he goes out and throws the first 4 games away? Or do you just say, this is his last year here, we'll wash our hands of it, and finally we can admit we made a mistake 5 years ago?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Sonny, no, they have not signed Devin White yet, but they were having cap issues.
They didn't have the money to sign him at all.
They haven't signed him, but they're working on that contract, though you are right, they have not signed him. Sonny also says he has a feeling about Scotty Miller. What's your feeling, man? I mean, how much... I mean, he's going to have playing time, right? He has to.
We have an Adam Humphries where he kind of like comes out of nowhere and he's that late round pick.
When you lose Jackson and you lose Humphries, there's going to be playing time for this guy.
Right. No, I agree. And, I mean, he was saying Sonny's saying he'd take a small step back in the passing game if they get better in the run. But what have they done to get better in the running game? I mean, they lost Jaquiz Rodgers. They still have their second round, or their first round pick from last year, whose name I can't think of, the USC running back, Ronald Jones. Still have Ronald Jones, who I think they're hoping is going to be better in 2019 than he was in 2018, but this guy might be Trent Richardson again, where you can't find any holes. I mean, Dirk Carter in a press conference was like, no, we're just not using him because we like Peyton Barber. No, I mean, the guy can't find any holes. I think it might have been a wasted pick. I think they're only going to be just as bad, if not worse, in the running game this year. Their offensive line's basically coming back the same. They have done very little to address any of this because they didn't have any money. They've done such poor planning. They have no money for any of these guys. This is what I'm talking about when you can't overpay bad players, right?
Yeah.
This is what I was complaining about with John Lynch when we talked about the 49ers here the past episode or two. You can't pay these bad guys because then you turn it into Tampa Bay.
Jeremy, thank you for the share, man. We appreciate it. Ian says this team should be wearing the creamsicle uniforms this year. They will be 1980 bad.
You're right.
I'm going to say something that a lot of people don't agree with. I actually like those uniforms.
I like them too.
And they're
do.
considered they're considered one of the worst uniforms of all time. But I think it's just because of the team that was wearing them was so bad. But I actually like them. I don't know why I do. I like the color scheme on them.
Now, also, Travis, good to see you, man. And Alex, good to see you, too. He says, Fitzmagic made that season. I'm right there with you. I would have stuck with him. I know they were kind of committed to it. The problem is when you have a sunk cost like Jameis Winston, it's hard as a GM to just throw it away and say, look, man, we messed up. You know, we don't need Jameis Winston anymore. We're going to go with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's only a mid-range to lower-tier quarterback, and throw that first overall pick out the window because then it makes you look bad.
Travis says Jones was not that good at USC.
He wasn't great, but he was good enough to get, what was it, the 28th pick, was it?
Something like that. I was just going to say, sometimes when running backs get drafted, it's not always based on the statistics or what, them moving along. It's kind of like when it was kind of the flash the pan kind of scenario where it's like you see him for a quarter of a game, they're like, that's talent right there. We can, and then coaches and scouts will all sit there and go, we're going to take this quarter of film and say, this is what you can do for all the games in the NFL.
Look at Josh Jacobs this year. He wasn't even the leading running back at
Alabama.
He was like a three-man rotation, and he was a first-round pick.
That's a great point.
You're absolutely right, Drew. Coaches look at what they think a guy can develop into, and they say, I can fix that with running backs.
Right.
I can make that work. So, if not, Monty Ball from Wisconsin would have been like the number one drafted running back in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
And the guy had the most college yardage, I think, across the NCAA when he broke it.
There are a lot of running backs you can bring up. You can sit there and bring up Bryce Love.
Mm-hmm.
He was, considered one of the better college running backs, and what did he fall to, like the third or fourth round of the Redskins?
Yeah, I know.
It might have been further than that. I can't remember where he got drafted.
Yeah, so a lot of times guys bet on what they think guys can do from a physical standpoint rather than what they see production-wise out of running backs. I think that's probably what you saw in Ronald Jones. And, surprise, Tampa Bay made a mistake. And it's looking like a mistake. I don't want to say his career's over. It's 1 year, and maybe Dirk Cotter just couldn't find a way to make it work with him. Maybe Bruce Arians will have better luck, or will have whatever that magic coaching he needs to say to the guy that'll help him see better. It didn't work with Trent Richardson, though. Vision worries me with running backs. Usually the good guys can see really well, and the bad guys can't, and you don't really develop that very much at this point in your career. You've either got it by now, or you're not going to get it.
The only one that didn't have good vision was Eric Dickerson.
Yeah.
He had to wear the glass goggles. No, I want to talk a little bit about Alex's comment where he says he thinks they should cut the losses with Winston. With Winston. I know you talked about it a little bit, and Alex, I know you're just watching the show for the first time, but a lot of these viewers know that I am not a Jameis Winston fan. I think he's not good at all. That's me being extremely nice. I have seen the guy make way too many mistakes where he's just releasing the ball, like falling down on the ground, or he throws the ball straight up in the air for
for anyone to catch.
Catch. And his decision making is absolutely terrible. But what you saw Winston do last season at the end of those games, even though they weren't winning games, you saw a different Winston. You did.
He looked a little bit better.
You saw a different one, and it's just
he still threw a lot of picks.
Well, I don't think you're ever going to not throw picks with Winston. I think that's why they bring in someone like Bruce Arians, where, he's considered a quarterback coach. He's going to look at those games, and he's going to try the best as he can to get that out of him for all 16 games. That being said, this is like a trial run for a season for Winston to be a starter.
Is it fair, though?
In the league?
Is it fair, though? Yeah, you gave him a couple receivers. You also gave him an offensive line that's not particularly great at protecting him. You also gave him a lot of running back. And I know it's not a 1 year. It's not a 1 year.
To be honest with you, and I'm not trying to interrupt you. To be honest with you, what he had last year was more than a lot of people have on their roster.
Peyton Barber.
No, I'm talking about receiving core.
You're right. You're right. The receivers are still there. You
got Evans, you got Jackson, Humphreys, and then you got OJ and Brate. Those are 5 weapons that are legitimate.
Even now, Goodwin, Evans, Brate, and Howard, that's more than a lot of teams have.
Right, that's true.
I bet you Aaron Rodgers would love to have that starting lineup out there, and he'd even give you Devontae Adams to get it. But I think if you look at the way this team is set up, the rest of it, they're not going to play any defense. So you're always going to be down. It's always going to be on you, and it's always going to be Andrew. We need 6 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Exactly.
It's not a fair shake from that standpoint. From that point of view, no, he's not being dealt a fair hand for this year. But there have been other Tampa Bay teams that have had a little bit more promise on them that just never really quite worked out.
Yeah.
And why did they not work out? Because Jameis Winston has not, to this point in his career, been good enough to justify being a starter. I think this year might be the year you replace him. I really do. I know they're kind of going with the Titans and saying this year's a trial year. We'll make our decision afterward. No. To me, the decision is almost all but made, and it's going to take an all-pro caliber year, like a Cam Newton MVP season out of Jameis Winston, that could even change the script where you'd even give him like a mid-range contract to keep him around.
You stole that from me.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Let's talk about a couple other losses.
I'm glad you listened
I don't
to me,
want to keep going.
I've talked about that before. Hold on real quick. Alex says, believe I am not a fan either, and his decision-making is not good on the field or off the field. Should weigh something. I don't want to get too much on the off-the-field stuff because we're not really concerned what millionaires do outside the football field.
We are somewhat. I mean, when you're this bad, and then you've got the extra stuff on top of it, it's bad.
But, yes.
We are concerned when people grope people. Don't give us the wrong idea.
His decision-making is absolutely terrible. That's all I was trying to get at. We're not going to harp too much on it. Who forgets to pay for $40 crab legs? I don't, because
it was college. It was a different time. Who gropes Uber drivers when you're a millionaire and you probably never?
Is that what
you get any girl you want? Yeah, you had that, and whatever. That was the latest issue, whatever with him.
Let's talk about the defense. Let's talk about it real quick. We should.
They went with the great value brand again, getting rid of Quan Alexander. I understand not wanting him to pay him what the 49ers paid.
Right.
Okay? You can't pay a good but not great linebacker that kind of money and expect to be a good team in the NFL. But when you get rid of Quan Alexander and you're betting on Devin White to replace that level of production in his first year that you would have got out of Quan Alexander's fifth, it's not fair. It really isn't. It's too much to ask for a rookie, even though we believe Devin White could evolve into that guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I have to. Ian says he sees Winston ended his career in a Jets uniform as a backup.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, if they don't re-sign him, he is not a starter. He'll have to earn every position from now on if this does not work out.
He doesn't even get that Blake Bortles sweetheart deal where he goes to the Rams or something like that. You don't see a contender signing him as a backup and saying, maybe if somebody, like the Chargers, if Phillip Rivers gets hurt, God forbid, and, Winston comes on there, maybe we can win with this roster. You don't see that kind of scenario?
No. Ian says, what defense? You're absolutely right. You're 100% right.
And it's only going to get worse.
What I really want to harp on is their drafting. And I get it. Everyone sat there and said, the Devin White pick was what they needed to do. It was a perfect pick, right? And in the scenario of that's a huge loss, losing Alexander, you need to replace that.
That was good value. I might have been one of the only guys saying they could have gone another direction. But yeah.
But after that.
This is universally loved, yes.
Yeah. You're just,
Well, like I said, I love Devin White too. I think he's a great player. But when you need an entire defense, I don't know that middle linebacker is the place you start. You're not like, we've got a middle linebacker. We're good.
Yeah, it is if you draft well after that. The problem is they didn't draft well after that.
I'm a D-line guy, Drew. I know I don't look like it. I know I might be missing a few pounds, but I'm a D-line guy. This could have been an edge rusher.
They had JPP.
This could have been Josh Allen.
They had JPP. They had McCoy. And they're like, that is not a dire
but
need.
this is bad planning because, JPP got hurt, okay?
Right.
You don't get to plan for that. But Gerald McCoy, you should have been like, somebody's got to go if we're going to sign this 5th overall pick. We've got months to prep for this, and they didn't. Again, poorly managed. Very poorly managed. You should have known that Gerald McCoy is not realistically going to be on this team. We're going to have to replace it. They could have traded up.
Well, they did. Last year with Vita Vea.
They could have traded up and drafted a D tackle if that's what they felt like to get what's his name from Alabama. They could have done that if they felt like they needed the defensive tackle. You could have went Josh Allen to help on this defensive line as well. Again, I'm a defensive line guy, Drew. I get what you're saying. I don't think this is a bad pick. This is good value when you're getting a guy like Devin White.
You lose someone like Quan Alexander. You lose someone like Quan Alexander, who literally was your heart and soul of defense. You need to replace them, and obviously, like you said, they're not going to pay him.
Right.
So they need to bring in a rookie and have a rookie on a rookie contract, and this is how you do it. And when you're at number 5, and there is arguably one of the best middle linebackers to come out of college in the recent few years, at least highly sought after, you take them.
And we gave them credit at the time, right? They said they didn't deviate from the plan. That was the plan all along. They were taking Devin White, even when Josh Allen fell to them. Edge rusher out of Kentucky had that one great year where he went from like 9 sacks to like 18 and a half.
Right.
We were like props to them sort of for not going for the flashy guy, but this was like we were kind of agreeing this is a 3-person draft, and then one of those 3 people fell to you and you didn't take them at 5. So to me,
okay, all right,
who's going to help you more?
This is another
long-term,
scenario
is
that
my
I'm
question.
just thinking about. Okay, So you sit there and you draft Josh Allen. Who do you move to the right side, Josh or JPP? Because you move JPP.
Josh Allen, JPP because he's old.
But that's his
then you get another defensive end.
That's his hand.
And you put Josh Allen in there, who's
fingers.
going to be the stud going forward. And then at least you have a pass rusher. Then at least you're the Cardinals, where you have a Chandler Jones-level guy that can eventually grow into an elite talented edge rush. Maybe this year's not your year, but you grow around that guy. You put him and make him as comfortable as possible and convince him that you're the future of this defense. I still like the Devin White move. I do like Devin White.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. You're absolutely right. Picking Josh Allen over Devin White, I don't think it would have been that bad of a pick. It would have been, honestly, in my opinion, a wash. It was a need on both ends. I like the Devin White pick, even though I think Devin Bush is going to be a better player. Ta-da, just saying. And it was what they decided to do, but it's after that is what I can't stand. Because what did they do last year? They drafted a whole bunch of defensive backs. What did they do after this linebacker picked?
Drafted 3 straight defensive backs afterward because none of those guys apparently worked out well enough. They took Sean Bunting out of Central Michigan, a guy that I thought, even though I don't think he's the worst player in the world, there were a lot of other guys on the board. It could have been Amari Oruwariye out of Penn State. It could have been the Michigan cornerback that shut everyone down, David Lane. It could have been any one of these guys. There were 3 or 4 or 5 names much higher than him on the board at this point. They went with the guy that is much more of a physical specimen rather than the most talented cornerback, and I think that's going to come back to bite him. Same thing with Jamal Dean. Even though they took him in the third round, there were other guys they could have gone with. There were other guys that are better and more sound in their technique and not as physical as this guy is, and it would have been, you still would have got a better corner in my opinion. I think they just oversold and overbought on the physical ability of some of these guys, and they said, we're going to be fast, we're going to be strong, we're going to be everything else. Oakland's done that forever, and it doesn't work out. You need good football players eventually. When there's good football players on the board, I gotta give you a bad grade in the draft. We gave them one of our only Fs in a stacked class. They got an F.
Yeah, and
at least in my book. I don't remember what you gave them.
I think it was a D.
Yeah,
and then the only reason I didn't give him an F is because I like the Devin White pick.
Yeah. And I do like the Devin White pick, but I think that was good value. I think that's right about where Devin White should have gone. So I'm not like, man, they stole Devin White away, right?
Yeah.
So, to me, that is why we gave them an F. Let's move on to the schedule. Okay, so they had a terrible offseason. Everything's gotten worse. The wheels were already barely staying on the car. Now they're off, right? Now you're just grinding on the rims at this point. It starts off bad. When we talk about the 49ers, you talk about the Panthers, you're going to get a healthy Jimmy G in that game. You got to go Jimmy G there, right? You got to assume that even though we don't like what the 49ers have done, or at least I don't, with the spending, they've brought in good players with the money. Good players with the money.
Yeah, and this might be a game that you might see the Bucs offense not kind of fall on its face because as the secondary the 49ers are putting together, even though I don't dislike them, they're a little bit older. And when you have people like Mike Evans, you just don't stop that
Whoever's
guy.
Left.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to say him.
But
But Mike Evans, who's going to stop that guy? And who does Winston love to throw the ball to?
I think they're hoping Richard Sherman, even though Richard Sherman doesn't trade sides. And that's the thing. If I was Tampa Bay, I would just say, okay, Mike Evans, you're going to play from the left side of the offense instead of the right side of the offense today because Richard Sherman's about what they've got in the secondary.
There's another corner now.
Jimmy Ward.
Is it Jimmy Ward?
Yeah. Even though I think they moved him to safety.
Yeah. There's a corner they picked up, and now I can't remember who it is off the top of my head. But moving forward, even that being said, that 49ers defensive line, all their money, all those draft picks, and you look at Tampa Bay's offensive line, who's stopping those guys from getting to Winston? Winston is going to be turning the ball over. He's going to be getting sacked. He's going to be making poor decisions because he's under duress, and this is why the 49ers won this game. And you'll see a rhythm throughout the schedule where that's what we're going to harp on a lot. Not that this offensive line is the most terrible offensive line, but it's not good.
They're not good, no. And they paid him a lot of money to not be good.
And we all know how to beat Winston. That's put pressure in his face and make him make terrible decisions on the fly.
And you were saying you didn't like the secondary for the 49ers, but let me tell you, I like this defensive line matching up against this offensive line. You're not going to need to send the house to get pressure on Winston. This is going to be the game that you want to introduce Nick Bosa in, where he can go up against a guy that, even though this is an NFL caliber offensive tackle and maybe it's a little bit of a grind for him, he's still going to be able to have a little bit of success because it's not the best guy in the world. You also have D Ford coming in, a veteran that I think is going to be out there trying to prove himself. You've got some other guys that are going to be on the defensive line. Solomon Thomas that are going to be chewing them up. This is going to be a running theme here, but the Buccaneers' offensive line is not keeping these guys out of the backfield. It's an easy win for the 49ers, I think. Then they go on the road to face the Panthers. This is not the team they're set up to beat. You're not beating a running team that plays good defense. I don't want to dwell on this too much. I know Panthers fans want to talk about how Christian McCaffrey's going to pound the rock on him. He's going to get all these carries. He's going to score a bunch of points and everything. Yeah, this is the game where you pick Christian McCaffrey up in daily fantasy.
No doubt. Real quick, Martavius says the 49ers will run amok all over the Bucs.
I don't know about running as much. Even though I like what they could do, and I like their offensive line, maybe they do. Maybe they do. That's not what I'm betting on. I think Jimmy G has a field day passing the ball, because I don't think anyone's getting back there. I think Ndamukong Suh's lost his edge
I like
on the
tandem
rushing
the
attack.
49ers are bringing in the running back duo.
You like Coleman and McKinnon?
I like
you
it.
could do worse. I think those guys are both good number twos.
The other side of the field on the 49ers,
maybe
or the Buccaneers.
Maybe this is the game where the offensive line just blows up that D-line and those guys feast. But to me, I think this is a Jimmy G game. I think this could be Kyle Shanahan saying, hey, guys, this is why I'm one of the best coaches. This is why the NFL.com messed up by putting me like 23rd best coach in the NFL or something like that. And they're going to throw all over this hapless team. I think they're going to make the most out of Jimmy G, and then they'll run after the fact.
Ian says Winston will get sacked 4 times, hurried numerous more. The D for DeForest Buckner will dominate. Or I think you said DF. I'm assuming that's DeForest Buckner. Dominate.
I agree.
Unless it said SF, and that's San Fran.
Right. I think he was going SF there. D is next to F on the keyboard. D is next to S on the keyboard. I said F. That's not true. It is true. It is right next to the F, too. But not what I meant. Also, going back to this, I think you're right. I absolutely think you're right, Ian. I think that Winston's going to be sacked. I might even go higher than 4. If you give me an over-under of 4, I'd go with the over. I think Winston's going to get sacked 6 times here, 7 times. That defensive line is what they've spent big on. They've brought in all these top-level picks. They've paid all this money to D Ford. This is where you feast. This is where you earn your money, especially if you're somebody like D Ford and you want to justify that big contract. This is the game you get 3 or 4 sacks in. And then you go into the next, even if you disappoint for the rest of the season, you come out and say, well, I had 10 sacks, and even though 3 or 4 of them came in a game, it didn't matter. I think this is absolutely going to be a mauling on the defensive front. I don't want to dwell on it, though. I think the 49ers are the favorite, right?
We shouldn't dwell on it. Ian says this is the best game for the Panthers all year.
Yeah.
Statistically, I have to agree with you.
I agree. And you match up really, really well against everything they want to do.
Right.
You run the rock. They don't
Right.
run. They don't defend the run. You play really good defense, or at least I think they're hoping to play good defense on that
Well, they got
defensive
good
front.
players.
Yeah. I think they're going to do really well in this game, too. I think Jameis Winston's going to struggle here. It's in division. That's the only thing the Bucs really have going for them. Maybe they can leg out something early in the season where the defense is still trying to gel. But I got to go Panthers here. On paper, I'm going Panthers, especially because it's in Carolina.
Yeah, and this is a short week. This is their Thursday night game. This is
You ready for round 2?
pretty much the only Bucs, main.
We moved the cooler. I got to go all the way to Timbuktu for these.
This is the only primetime game, really, beyond the game that they play the Panthers in New England, I believe. This is literally their primetime game, but they fight in a short week against a division rival, like we all know Thursday night games are. This is just not a game for the Bucs.
No.
I'm afraid this is not a year for the Bucs.
Well, let's talk about a game that could bounce back. The Giants. And we argued about this one a little bit, right? We kind of debated, is this a win? The Giants, as much as I talk crap about the Giants and the moves they've made, and I don't love the fact that they booted Odell Beckham for not too much, and they're spending money on offensive linemen like Logan Mankins, who's the guy from New England that I always forget his name, the left tackle, Nate Solder, thank you. Even though they paid Nate Solder a lot of money to be mediocre, I got to say this, they do one thing really well. And I like teams that do one thing before I like teams that do 0 things. They play offense in New York. I think they're going to be able to run with Saquon Barkley. Their offensive line will still be better. Even if they're somewhere in the middle of the pack, they'll be better than what you're going to see out of the defensive line that Tampa Bay's can put up there.
Right.
And they throw the ball, too. They still have Sterling Shepard. They brought in Golden Tate, who, even though I'm still like, Golden Tate's just a guy to me. He's a good possession receiver. He's a guy that can catch the ball. They have Evan Ingram. They're going to be able to play offense, and the Bucs are only going to be looking to throw.
Yeah, and they're gonna find open space in that secondary. There's no doubt about it. This is a depleted defense on the other side of the ball with the New York Giants. But what they do offensively, I think, is where the Bucs are going to struggle. If they could keep the rock out of Winston's hands, where they're not being able to throw the ball with Saquon Barkley running the ball like he does, especially against a defense like this where he's going to flourish. Another one of those daily fantasy pickups. It's almost any running back that faces the Buccaneers is
You
worth
want
picking
them.
up.
Absolutely. Now, everybody from Ian to Tyler or Travis, is all in on the 49ers crushing the Buccaneers. And Martavius says Cam will have his way, and he definitely has the Panthers. I know, Martavius, you're a Falcons fan, man. I know you're hoping that maybe the Buccaneers can steal one of these games against the Panthers early, and the Panthers can drop out of the race, and your Falcons can go get that second to first spot competition with the Saints, and the rest of the division falls apart. But I'm with you, man. I think the Panthers win that one. I think the Giants win this one, too. They're going to play smash-mouth football. And smash-mouth football is how you beat this Buccaneers team. They're not going to match up well against teams that can run it all. Going to what Ian said. Ian says if he makes it to Nashville, he will I'm not sure what that was, show you. He says he's got cold beer when needed. Man, we're always looking for company. That'd be fun to do. Deo says Absolutely. Eli is done. He's not Peyton Manning. And I don't think Eli's going to need to do too much in this game. This could be a lot of Saquon Barkley, and then Eli's going to be able to throw when he needs to because nobody's guarding these receivers.
Yeah.
He's got good receivers. He's got a good offensive line, or at least a decent one that should protect him.
And should have gotten better.
And against one of the worst defensive lines in football, they're going to be okay. I think the Giants win that one. I know Deo, I'm not a Giants guy. I'm not an Eli guy either. But in this one, I got to give him the edge.
Thanks, Sonny. Good luck on your date, man. Wrap your
Not good, by the way. We won't give the number away, but not good. Stop that. No.
Wrap your willy, don't be silly. That's all I got to say.
All right. Well, I'm glad this is the internet. We'll move on. Talk about them getting murdered by the Rams. On the road, week 4, and then you get the Saints on the road after that. Do we even need to talk about these? Is anyone picking the Buccaneers? Is anyone fading the I know the Saints lost to him week 1, but this isn't week 1. This isn't Ryan Fitzpatrick coming in and having one of his, games that you're like, man, this guy could be a starter. This is Jameis Winston going up against him, right? In week 5, where the defense has gelled a little bit. They've had a month to work together. This is probably the first week of October. Maybe the last week of September.
The Saints were embarrassed last year.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it was week 1, they have not forgotten that a team that was the 5th overall pick of the draft beat them in week 1. This is remembered. And this game will be an avenge game. I mean, I know that they play each other every year, twice a year, but they remember these games. These are veterans that take their craft very seriously. They have coaches that take this very seriously, and this will be their driving point. They'll be like, do you remember the game last year that we first faced them? How sad we looked losing to a team like this? It's not going to happen again.
No, I totally agree. And again, it's not the first week of the season, so the defense has time to play together. I don't think you're going to get down or you're going to let the Buccaneers offense, as good as they are at throwing the ball, do what they did last year. I think the Saints are going to be much better than that. Now, Travis says, go Rams, horns up. This might be the game where the Rams say we want to be the number 1 offense this year. Maybe we've got our pride on the line a little bit, and this is the game we go beat up a bad defense so we can pad those stats a little bit. I think that might be the case in week 4 as well. It's in L.A. The Rams have a better following out there in L.A. than the Chargers do, so you're going to be a little bit louder. This, to me, get out of this one if you're a Tampa Bay fan without being totally embarrassed, and I'll call it a win.
Hey, Sue's going back to his team from last year.
Yeah. All right.
Does that make a difference? Does he stop Gurley?
Is he fast enough to get back to Jared Goff?
Does it get to Goff?
Anymore? Probably not. Maybe one time, maybe twice, he gets back there and makes an impact play, and then Jared Goff's like, wait, all my receivers are open all the time. Let's just, dump off the ball and get done with it.
Deo says Bruce will change Winston. Change him to not be a starting quarterback?
He might change who's running the offense next year. I think so. I don't think you can fix what's broken with Jameis Winston, which is the turnovers. You can only tell a guy so many times, throw it to the open receiver.
Listen, I like Bruce Arians. I really honestly do. I think he is a great coach. I don't know if I agree completely on all his coaching methods. He's considered a quarterback coach. He's considered a guy that can be a guru and help a quarterback, become the best he can be. But when you have someone like Winston, where I think it's literally just in his DNA to make poor decisions when under pressure, I don't know if you can change that. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I just don't know
if
that's
Travis
something.
Travis is fading it too. Travis says Bruce will not change
I just don't think it's something that you could coach out of him. I think what you have to do, and you've harped on this forever about Winston, is you got to put everything perfect around a guy like this to make it successful in the NFL.
Even then, I don't know if I believe it. I think my opinion has changed in this year that we've talked about it. Last year I said that. I said if you put the perfect team around Jameis Winston, if you put great receivers and a great offensive line and a great running game and a great defense out there, and Jameis Winston is your quarterback, you win a Super Bowl, I might have faded away from that. He might make enough boneheaded mistakes that that's what cost you that NFC championship. Or, well, yeah, it'll be NFC because they're out there. That might be what cost you in the playoffs here. Will says Tampa goes beast mode, but take that with a grain of salt because he is a Tampa Bay fan. Will,
glad you could join us, man. We were wondering where you were at.
Will, brace yourself, buddy. That's all I can say. And like I said, Tampa Bay is my NFC team. I know how to pick losers, right? I picked the Titans in the AFC, picked the Bucs in the NFC as a child. I failed as an NFL fan. Brace yourself, man, because 2019 is going to be rough.
And we're not bashing them.
We're bashing them. We bashed everything they did in the offseason.
Yeah,
every move we bashed. We were not like they had one good thing. They signed Bradley Pinion, punter. I think that's a good move because you're going to need to punt a lot. Maybe, because Jameis might just turn the ball over.
They brought in Sue, who can do...
But they gave up Gerald McCoy, who we both agreed is better. Everything has been like the discount. It's been the store brand kind of addition to replace what used to be the name brand guy that you let go.
Hey, there's some good store brand stuff.
Yeah, that's what they're hoping.
Oh,
that's absolutely what Tampa Bay is hoping.
That's food though, not NFL players.
Absolutely, Sharif, man, good to see you. So did you want to go ahead and say hi?
Hi, Sharif.
All right. Deo says
he's my friend.
Deo says he hasn't had a QB coach though, and I think he's talking about the head coach. I mean, Dirk Carter led this team to have the first in passing offense, the third best offense. I don't think we can say the offense hasn't been good, right? Dirk Carter has done a decent job of coaching the offense. Has their defense been bad? Yeah, I'll give you that. So in that sense, Deo, I think you're right. But on the reverse, man, I look at it and I say, this is also the guy that was, like Colin Cowherd said when I watched him earlier in the week, was going home at 5:30 and bragging about having cocktails with his wife. Does he have the work ethic at this point to
turn
turn
a strong marriage?
To turn, yes, and I don't fault him for that. But you need some work ethic to turn this Tampa Bay team around, okay? This is a 90-hour-a-week job, Drew. Can you put in 60 and get away with it in Tampa Bay? My answer is no. I don't think so. I think this is a team that might need 100, 120 hours out of their offensive guru to get things back on track.
Oh, man.
You're behind the times. You're behind the times. That's all I can say. Not you, but I mean, like, no, Tampa Bay is behind the times.
Dude, okay, I get it. And if he's starting his morning off at 7 and going home at 5, that's not what you do in the NFL.
No.
But if
you start your morning off at 4 and then you, like, sleep in a cot in your office. Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. These guys spend way more time away from their family than probably any other profession, arguably. But you can't knock the guy for going home and having cocktails with his wife. But what you can knock him on is if your team's not perfect, like, quote, quote, the Patriots, you stay in and you do overtime.
And even the Patriots.
And there's going to be a lot of overtime with this team.
But even the Patriots, why are they that good? Because Bill Belichick is like the most anal individual in existence, where it doesn't matter. If there is a small deficiency, we complain about it, we fix it, we do everything we need to do to get it back on track. That, I think, separates winners from losers. And not that I think Bruce Arians is a loser, but you're going to one of the biggest rebuilds in the NFL. You're going to need to put in extra effort to fix this around, especially when you look at this talent and the commitments they've made to bad players.
So, Will saying, when Tampa Bay goes beast mode, he's expected apologies from both of us.
Will, I will give you an apology, okay?
That's his second favorite team.
It is.
You will never hear an apology from me.
This is just honesty. You'll get an apology from me when they win 4 games, okay?
The only way
I'll be like, man, they outlived my expectations.
The only way I apologize is if you bought me a beer and I dropped it and you had to buy me another one. I would apologize to that.
All right. Now, Travis says they're going to double-team Evans every game. No weapons in Tampa Bay. I think we're sleeping on Goodwin a little bit. Goodwin. I still don't know how he says it.
It's Godwin.
We're sleeping on Godwin a little bit. We're also sleeping on Cameron Brate, great receiving tight end. O.J. Howard eventually might develop and be worth that first-round pick, but he's still a decent weapon. They got guys, Travis. It's not just Mike Evans. They lost some. They're going to be worse at it this year, but they've still got some guys.
Yeah.
And even with a double team, I think Mike Evans still catches the ball. He's almost DeAndre Hopkins. He's not. Sharif, take a deep breath. He's not DeAndre Hopkins, but he's almost that type of guy where it doesn't matter if there's 2 guys there. You just lob it up and you let him catch the ball. I probably almost gave him a heart attack there. I really did.
Did you talk about this? Travis said the Bucs should have traded for Cooper last year from the Raiders and to help out their offense.
That would have been a great 1-2 punch, but would you have given up pick number 5 to go get Amari Cooper?
Well, they didn't know it was 5 at the time.
They probably had a good idea that things are going off the rail. Well, no, I take it back. They had that good 4-week span, and they're like, we're going to the playoffs.
Is it Goodwin?
It's Goodwin. It was Goodwin, yeah.
It's Goodwin.
Yeah, but it's spelled like Godwin.
But Godwin's in the 49ers. Goodwin's in the Bucs.
All right. They have a good receiver besides Mike Evans. Nobody knows what his name is.
They either have a god receiver or a good receiver.
Yeah, exactly. Also, Ian says they need to re-sign Cadillac Williams. He's my guy in Madden 08. Cadillac Williams. I think it might be a little late for that, though, Ian. He says to even try to win a game again. The only time Tampa Bay was decent. Are we forgetting about the Super Bowl years? I don't think Cadillac was there for the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure that was like 08 or 09 he was there.
That's Will's boy right there.
Why don't they just get Derek Ward? Or not Derek Ward.
Derek Brooks?
No. Yes, Derek Brooks. Why don't they get Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp back? Thank you. I knew it was Derek something. Why don't they get those guys back, too? Let's just go back to the golden years. John Gruden, come on back. All right. Yeah, Tampa Bay has some questions and some issues here.
Week 6. Panthers. Not at home. In New England. In England, not New England. In England. They face the Panthers. And Martavius said something earlier about Cam Newton will go off. I don't know if we're going to see Cam Newton on week 2. Everyone's saying it's 0.2. Yes, we will. But maybe this is where you see him. He travels over to Europe, plays his first game over there. This might be a game where Cam Newton goes off against the Buccaneers.
Also, going to Deo's point, he says the offense, but remember what Bruce did with Andrew Luck.
Work done.
Work done was another guy that, would be great. That'd be a great running back to add. Work done. I mean, he was like 40 when he left anyway, so... He wasn't 40. He was like 35, I think. But that's okay. Deo, going back to your point here, it's Andrew Luck. You can put any offensive coordinator with Andrew Luck, minus Jeff Fisher, and I think he looked good. I think any other offensive coach would make Andrew Luck look good. I think Andrew Luck's just a great player. And I'm a Titans fan. I hate Andrew Luck, but he's a gread player.
Todd Haley. He should never be a head coach.
Todd Haley would be great with Andrew Luck. Anyone would be great with Andrew Luck.
As an offensive coordinator, not a head coach.
Defensive coordinator would be a good, or head coach. Was Chuck Pagano a world beater, or was Andrew Luck just that good? Is Frank Reich even a world beater, or is it just Andrew Luck is really, really good?
I like both those guys as head coaches.
I don't like Pagano as much. I think Pagano's okay. I'm not going to say he's great. I think Pagano's okay. And I think Frank Reich's done a good job. But I think it's really easy to be a head coach when your quarterback is as good as Andrew Luck is. When you have a top 5 quarterback, it's really easy to look good as a head coach.
Say that about Belichick then?
Yeah. It is easy to look good when Tom Brady's throwing all over the lot. But when Tom Brady hasn't been doing it, they've also found a way to win, which is why I put Belichick ahead of those guys. When Tom Brady has taken a step back and has struggled at times to throw the ball, or the receivers haven't been there, running game has stepped up.
He made Matt Castle a starting quarterback in
and won 11 games.
And unfortunately, he went to my Chiefs, which was
and the Titans.
Depressing.
I know we both suffered the Matt Castle disease.
We took him was like, this is our guy.
He played games in Tennessee too.
Dude, okay? We said we're like, this is our starter for our future of our organization was Matt Castle.
I know. I hate it for you, but I hate it for me more because it was my team and it was a personal loss. We'll see. Look, I don't think Bruce Arians is the worst quarterback coach in the world, but we're also talking about 2 really good quarterbacks. If Carson Palmer never got hurt early in his career, we would be talking about him being a great quarterback. Remember, we talked about him when he came into the league, like he was Peyton Manning and Tom Brady up there, and he was going to be the next great top 3 quarterback. It's just injury set him back a little bit. So yes, did he do well with Palmer? Of course he did. But does Palmer's talent kind of help what you're coaching? I think absolutely it does.
Ian says with the travel.
And Ian is right. Winston is no luck. Another one from Ian. You're absolutely right there.
Ian says the travel for Tampa Bay might be able to sneak a W in London. He's going to give Tampa Bay the W against the Panthers in London.
Not against this defense, not against this running game. I understand the optimism.
This is a game you might actually have a healthy Cam Newton playing.
Even if it's not, do they need him? Can Christian McCaffrey single-handedly beat the Buccaneers? I think when I look at this defensive front, the answer might be yeah.
And Sharif, yes, Jake is still bitter from Jeff Fisher being a Titans head coach.
Yeah, of course I am. And yes, Madden 08 reference. It was the last time it was good, when they had the vision thing. I'm kidding, but that was dumb. But
04.
Absolutely. I used to dominate Madden 08, okay?
04. When Michael Vick was God mode.
Yeah, well, he was no Michael Vick, but let me tell you, the 08 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, much better than what we're seeing now. We'll move forward here. I'm with Travis here. Luck is great. That's what I'm saying. Again, when I'm hating on the Colts, I still got to give him credit. Andrew Luck is a top 5, top 3, top 2 quarterback in the league. The guy's amazing. He really is. I think when you look at Bruce Arians, and it's really easy to look like a good coach when you've got good talent around you. This will be, if he turns Jameis Winston around, I'll be like, this is the best quarterback coach in the NFL. I'll admit it. I'll throw my hands up and say Bruce Arians is one of the best offensive minds. He's one of the best quarterback coaches to ever be in the game.
He said it multiple times that he's going to turn Winston's career around.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, man.
I think the task is too great. You can only coach so much. Talent has to come in at some point.
And I like Arians. I think that's I say I want. I think that's the right move for them to make. But I think Winston's it's burnt toast. There's nothing you can do to fix it, man. You can put as much butter on it as you want. It still tastes burnt.
They go into week 7 with a bye, and then after that, they get the slaughterhouse that is the Tennessee Titans. Again, this is one of those games that the Titans will be thankful to have in the middle of the season. They'll get to, I don't want to say rest, but this will still be a close game because we're Tennessee. But the Titans are going to be able to run the rock. Derrick Henry should have a good day, and the defense will play really well against Tampa Bay, and it should be a win out there in LP Field.
Yeah, I agree. And then on week 9, they find themselves on the West Coast facing the Seattle Seahawks. This is a team that just is going to dominate the Bucs. I fully, obviously, everyone knows I like Russell Wilson, and Sharif knows that I have a huge man crush on Tyler Lockett. These guys being able to play great offense with running the ball and throwing it. It doesn't matter what kind of style of offense you like to stop. The Seahawks seem to be able to do both well, and the Bucs are going to struggle against a team like this.
I think it doesn't get any easier. Even against the Cardinals next week, everyone wants to say, oh, the Cardinals were the worst team in the NFL last year. Well, they've kind of rejuvenated their offense. They've added some weapons. They're not going to be able to run very well, I don't think, against Tampa Bay, because even though I like David Johnson, I think that offensive line's weak for them. But they're going to be able to pass, and I think that's all they're going to need. And then on top of it, you got Chandler Jones. You now have a great defensive front with the Ravens outside linebacker that also joined them this year, Terrell Suggs. They're going to have a pass rush against Jameis Winston. I think that's all you need. Patrick Peterson's back now. I think the Cardinals steal a win here.
Ian says the bye will win by 12.
I think so. Honestly, might be the worst team in the NFL right now. Will, brace yourself, man. I hate it for you.
Sharif has a beer bet for us. He says he'll bet us not just a beer, a 6-pack that Winston numbers will be better.
Better than what? Better than last year? Well, if he plays more games, his numbers will be better. I think if you want to go by like average of yards per game, and I'm not even going to say it's not going to be better. He might get marginally better, but Winston marginally better doesn't win you football games when the roster looks like this. I just want to know what you mean by better.
Well, even if he...
Better than who?
Even if he creates a better percentage versus touchdowns and interceptions and things like that, the increase there, you have to understand that doesn't fix this team. Winston isn't just the issue of the Buccaneers. I mean, I know, Sharif, you know this. This is not my point to this. Is even if his numbers become better, because last year when those end of the season, his numbers were better than he's ever played before in those first 4 years. Well, 3.5 years. So we aren't seeing an increasing amount of numbers towards Winston being positive. The thing is Winston doesn't just need to put himself back to average. Winston needs to put himself above average. And that's where we're saying there is no above average for Winston.
I mean, if the season goes like we're thinking it's going for them, they're going to have a good pick. I don't want to spoil anything, but they're going to have a good pick. And when you've got this year where supposedly there's going to be a lot of these quarterbacks coming out that are high-level talents, Justin Herbert from Oregon, Tua Tagovailoa is likely to come out if he has a good year at Alabama. You've got a couple of other guys in the works as well. This is going to be a deep quarterback class. Again, how do you hold off from taking one of those guys if you're in the top 5 like Tampa Bay will be? I think when you look at what Jameis Winston's done, it'll be time to draft somebody else. Martavis also says that he thinks DK Metcalf will be a beast, and he can't wait to see him. The one thing I will say is I want to see how much that change of direction becomes an issue. I know the guy's swole, the guy's huge, and he's tall, and he runs fast, and he might be a great deep receiver. But in the NFL, I think you need to have more than just one thing you do. Typically, to be a great player, I want to see if that holds him back or whether he lives up to the hype. I think there's a reason he fell to the second round.
Sharif is saying that he believes in Jameis, which is fine, man. Put all your belief in him as you want. Travis says, does he have to win an MVP to stay in Tampa Bay? Before you answer that, I have said since the beginning of this offseason that Winston has to have the caliber of an MVP player to stay in Tampa Bay. And I said because, remember, he was the number 1 overall pick. They have put a lot of money into this guy. They have changed head coaches. They've changed offensive coordinators to put this guy as the face of this franchise. And the only way to save it, in my opinion, especially when you're bringing up, this could be one of the best college years in draft for quarterbacks in a long time, maybe since Andrew Luck. He's going to have the talk of being an MVP of the season. Does he have to be the MVP? No. But he has to play like an MVP to stay.
I think he can fall short because I think Tampa Bay makes bad decisions. That's my only thing. I think he could probably fall short of that. Tampa Bay might throw their hands up and say, it'll be fine. We'll take somebody else in the draft at that third, fourth spot, or maybe trade out of the pick and just roll with Jameis Winston. I think that's a mistake for the franchise. I think it's been time to get rid of Jameis. When you're turning over the ball that many times, you're never going to be a great team. I know Brett Favre turned the ball over, but Brett Favre would throw 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. It seems like Jameis Winston's the reverse of that, where he throws 2 touchdowns and 4 picks. So I don't see it. I think short of them making a bad decision, it's time to move on. Also, Sharif says DK will be the red zone guy for Tampa Bay. He could be.
That's Tyler Lockett.
He's tall.
Man.
He's tall.
It's Tyler Lockett.
I guess we'll see. Maybe Tyler Lockett's gonna have his job run up on. I don't know. I like DK Metcalf. I like the pick, but I also will say be a little skeptical with it. I know Martavis was all over him. Be a little bit skeptical with DK Metcalf with it, because we saw him run a worse cone drill than Tom Brady, and that can be tough to shake NFL cornerbacks who have the smoothest hips maybe in the world when you can't make a cut at all. So that to me is the biggest concern with DK. We'll move forward. Let's talk about the Saints Week 11. It's going to be a loss, right? Just like before, earlier in the season, Week 5, the Saints at home is still going to be as much of a struggle as the Saints on the road. They're just outmatched.
This is a rolling locomotive, and the Bucs are just getting in the way. This team's going to be steamrolling straight into the postseason, and a team like the Buccaneers just are going to fall short.
Now, we debated giving them a win against the Falcons, even though this one's on the road in Week 12. I just think the Falcons are going to have more power. They're going to need these wins. They're going to have other teams in the NFC that are racing them to the playoffs, and we think the Falcons will rebound a little bit on the defense. It's another easy loss for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I hate to say it, man, but this is another one that in division, you're just outmatched.
Then they go on the road again, even though it's not that far, to Jacksonville against the Jaguars. At this point in time, we think that Nick Foles has completely got this offense wrapped around him. We believe, even though his offensive weapons aren't great like Winston, we believe he's a better quarterback than Winston is, and there's no doubt about it. On the other side of the ball, that defense is stout.
Now, Sharif says the Saints in Tampa. Yeah, the Saints in Tampa. The Saints in Tampa, in London, in Mexico City, in Canada if they decide to play there. I'm going to take the Saints team over every Tampa Bay team. I know they beat them last year, but the quarterback who beat them isn't here anymore. You booted him away and you signed Blaine Gabbert to make up for it. Blaine Gabbert's not coming in and winning that game like Fitzpatrick did. I think this one, when you look at it, you just outmatched roster-wise. Eventually, you have to play the game, regardless of all the outside influence we always want to put on things. Oh, travel. Oh, all this other stuff. You just don't have the talent that they do. That's what it boils down to. The Buccaneers don't have the talent that the Saints do. You're talking about the class of the NFL against the bottom tier of it.
Martavius said the Falcons will sweep the Buccaneers. We have it as a sweep too. Spoiler alert for Week 17, but we also believe in that as well.
And Sharif saying it could be a trap game in New Orleans, but I don't know. I really don't. I get it. It's in division. That's the only thing I look at Tampa Bay and I say they could win this one. It's not even Week 1 where they didn't have enough time to prep and they were still trying to gel like last year. You don't have that excuse this year. I don't see it, man.
Ian is saying that the Buccaneers and Tampa Bay will tie. They're both blah in his opinion.
But what did the Jags do? They run the ball and they play defense.
And they brought in a better quarterback.
And I don't even know if that Nick Foles needs to throw the ball to beat him here, honestly.
But if he
just
he
go
needs to,
old
he
school
can.
football, 11 versus 11. Everyone get on the offensive or get on the line of scrimmage and just pound the rock. I think the Jags would still beat him. I think when you look at it, this is just the kind of recipe to beat the Buccaneers is run a little bit and play a little bit of defense. And I think they're going to do that in Jacksonville. I think the defense rebounds. And I think Leonard Fournette, if he's still healthy, or even if he's not, they're going to be committed to the run. They're going to be able to take advantage of a weak defensive front for Tampa Bay. Let's move on. I don't want to dwell on it. The Colts, we tried to justify it, right? We tried to give the Colts a loss here. We were like, man, maybe the Colts, because they throw the ball a lot, and Tampa Bay seems to be better against that than they do against the run. They get thrown against. It's not going to happen. The Colts, if they want to have any kind of chance of getting home field advantage for the playoffs, or if they want to beat out even some of these teams in the AFC South, you got to beat Tampa Bay. You just have to.
All the rumors now are swirling. Is this going to be the next 0-16 team in our schedule? We're sitting there going, is they ever going to find a win? I wish we had a little because they're going to find a win in Week 15 in Detroit against these Lions.
And we still don't even feel good about it. We're still like, maybe they beat Detroit. But Matt Stafford might come out and throw the ball over the line. It might be Kerryon Johnson running the ball. Maybe they play a little bit better defense. But if I had to bet on somebody, I'd probably pick the Lions or the Giants. And
this is okay, when we talk about this Buccaneers team, I know, Sharif, you're higher on Winston than I am. I know Will doesn't want to hear it, and I get it all, guys, and it makes a lot of sense. At some point in time, this offense, who was a number one team in passing, will put up points. And teams that cannot repeat what they're doing are teams that could lose to this team.
But we did like what the Lions did in the secondary.
I get
we
it.
like Darius Slay.
I do like Darius
Trey
Slay.
Flowers.
I get
we
it.
like
I
Snacks
get it.
Harrison.
But at some point in
I know.
time, this team's going to put up points. And a team that has an issue with putting up points fast is the Lions.
Now, Ian's saying that might be a trap game for Indy, and I agree with you. That's why we kind of hesitated a little bit here. But trap game or not, man, you look at the way this roster's set up. You look at Darius Leonard shutting down the running game. You look at that defensive front that's going to be better with Justin Houston getting after Jameis Winston. And you look at Andrew Luck, you got to go with the Colts.
And Ian's saying, no way, the Lions kill them at least by 20.
We were thinking maybe. I don't know. We were thinking maybe. We really were. We were thinking, but Ian's the Lions guy, if I remember right. I know he's a Steelers fan, but he was all in on the Lions when we talked about him an episode or two ago. I think when you look at it, Ian, this is one of the two games that I got to look at and say they have a chance of winning. And we didn't want to go 0-16 because this team, even though they're bad, they're not that bad, right? They throw the ball a little bit. I think they'll surprise somebody. Maybe the Lions just don't have the killer instinct to finish this one off, and they lose to Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Now, Sharif says Vegas has Tampa at 6.5 over-under. It's because of the passing offense, but I think that's incredibly high. I do. I really, really do. I think this defense is going to be historically bad. I think we're going to see Nakamada Suh take an even bigger step backwards than we saw with the Rams, and now he's the focal point of this defense. That's a lot to gamble on Devin White changing the culture of a defense by himself. I think 31 teams are going to be able to take advantage of this defense, and that maybe even 32 because maybe they take advantage of him in practice. So I would take the under on that, hands down. If you got any money, go put that on Tampa Bay being less than 6.5 games.
Ian says he has Tampa Bay as 2-13-1 with
Ian's
that
the
one
tie guy,
with
isn't
that
he?
one tie against Jacksonville.
Well, Week 16 they get the Texans. Just another game that maybe Houston. We saw them kind of take it easy last year against teams like the Jets. Maybe they come into this one without the killer instinct, but we got to go on paper with the Texans. I think they'll pull it out. Maybe it's like 20-19, and it's one of those games you're like, man, the Texans aren't a good team because they could barely beat the Buccaneers. But I still got to bet on Tampa winning or on Houston winning that game. And then we already said the Falcons win 17. We see them finishing 1-15. They're the worst team in the NFL. At this point, with what we've done, they're the worst team in the NFL. Terrible defense, worst in passing, can't run, can't guard the quarterback. What are you doing?
Someone's going to have to shine somewhere.
Absolutely.
Kenny, I'm glad you could join us, and let's not go Cowboys.
Well, let's talk about the Cowboys. We're going to talk about Zeke Elliott here.
Let's do it.
We pushed it to the end of the show.
I can't say go Cowboys. Darn it.
He just did. Let's talk about
See what
Zeke.
you did to me, Kenny?
Let's talk about Zeke Elliott holding out for the 2019 season. How far do the Cowboys let this go? How far does Jerry Jones, famous billionaire, let this go before he just pays the man? Because you don't see him trading Zeke Elliott, right? I've seen some of that in the media. Oh, trade Zeke Elliott. Is Jerry Jones going to throw his hands up and trade somebody like Zeke Elliott, or is he going to pay him? He's going to pay him, right?
Hold on. Just Kenny says at most Tampa Bay wins 4 games.
We gave him one.
We gave him 1.
And we had to think about it. We did. I think this is the worst team in football. We gave it to the Dolphins last year. I think that mantle has been passed on. At least the Dolphins are working on a secondary, and they're working on their defense, and they're working on maybe something on the offense, bringing in Josh Rosen to play quarterback. I think when you look at it, man, it's just this is not the team to bet on. Tampa Bay is not the team to bet on. They were already bad last year, and they've only gotten worse in the offseason.
Yep.
Sharif saying trade Zeke. Will they trade Zeke? I'm not even saying should they.
No.
Will they trade Zeke?
Let me just be completely honest here about the Cowboys. Zeke Elliott is the most important player on that roster, and that's even over DeMarcus Lawrence. And that's even over Dak Prescott. That's even over Amari Cooper. That's even over every player on that offensive line. And I'll tell you why. He has literally changed the Cowboys from being a laughable organization from literally the last time they won the Super Bowl to the time that he was drafted. And I know everyone's going, oh, there's a couple years with like Terrell Owens and no, this team was never irrelevant until Zeke Elliott came into this team. And I'm talking about after the Super Bowl. And that's not a knock on this organization. As much as you want to sit there and say you can move on, draft another running back, and be as good as you are, No, I don't think you can. Yeah, your defense is great, but we've seen great defenses still fail in the late into the season. Hence, like the Jaguars. You need someone on your offense that dominates and makes teams scared defensively. Zeke is not only just a runner; he is also a catcher. He catches the ball. I watch some highlights all the time. There's the quote the best play the Cowboys had last year was a bomb to Zeke Elliott. I mean, this guy is everywhere and everything you need on that offensive side of the ball. Dak wouldn't be who he is without Zeke, and Amari Cooper wouldn't find a lot of one-on-one or coverage around him without Zeke being part of this offense.
I'm going to run through some comments here, and then I'll answer that really quick. Ian says, only if Houston, his entire offensive line is hurt, will Tampa Bay win that game. I will say this, Ian. They were already a terrible offensive line last year, and they won 10 games. I think they'll be fine regardless of what that offensive line looks like. They already didn't protect the quarterback and got to the playoffs. I think they'll be fine. Against a team like Tampa Bay, it's not Ndamukong Suh that's going to be able to go get after Deshaun Watson at this point. Deshaun Watson's incredibly fast. He's incredibly mobile. I think he'll be fine making enough space to beat a team like Tampa Bay. Also, going through some more of these here. Travis says move on from Dak. I think I would make that move too, especially this year coming up with these quarterbacks coming up. You could trade up, go get another quarterback. I just don't like Dak Prescott making $35 million. I'm with you there. Sharif's saying trade Zeke and Dak's value will drop. I don't know if that's the right way to look at it because I don't think you should trade weapons away from a team to make a quarterback sign for less money. You don't want to look bad to sign a quarterback long term. The reverse is true almost. You want to put the team around the guy, and if he's not the guy, you kick him out and put a rookie in there with all these weapons around him. I think that would be better. I'm not worried about Dak's value. I get what you're saying, Sharif, and you're right. Dak's value would drop because you'd have a bad 2019, I think. But to me, when I look at it, don't sabotage the team to sign a cheap contract with a quarterback who might not be good enough to get that contract anyway. Moving on here. I want to go through here. Sharif says trade Zeke, Cooper, and Cooper's stock will drop. Maybe, but again, you don't.
It's everything I was talking.
You don't
about.
shoot. You don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face. And I think that's what this would be with trading Zeke to make other guys' values drop. You don't cut your nose off of the offense, getting rid of Zeke Elliott to spite the rest of the face and say we'll sign these guys for cheaper.
They're pretty much. It's pretty much being said what I said in the sense of you wouldn't have Cooper and Dak even being talked about if it wasn't for Zeke. Ian says Zeke is a prima donna, a new belle, and will be a big problem for Dallas. No, he won't be. If you pay him.
Well, I'm with Kenny here. He says talking about Jerry Jones, is not going to let him go. He's going to get his money, and Zeke is going to get his money. I agree. I think that's what's going to happen. I think more than likely we're going to see Zeke Elliott with a new contract before the season starts.
I get the guy's a problem. He jumped into the little cauldron. He punched some dude or whatever. He's getting charges pressed against him. He supposedly beat a girlfriend.
Knocked over a bouncer, and now he's getting sued for it. Everything else.
Punched him, whatever, knocked him over.
There's a lot of stuff.
I get it. But guess what? His production on the field kind of overshadows
This is
that
Jameis
stuff.
Winston, but you're like performing, right?
Yeah.
This is Jameis. This is the difference. If Jameis Winston was playing like a top 5 quarterback and had all that stuff, we'd be like, it's not a big deal. We're not worried about it. His talent outweighs the problems. Zeke Elliott is at a situation where his talent outweighs the problems.
And Sharif, you're right. Zeke gets in trouble with the law every year. But, man,
But what kind of trouble are we talking about, though? He's not killing people.
But he's one of the premier
He's not
players
El
in
Chapo.
the league.
He's not El Chapo dealing all these drugs out there.
He is a premier player in the league. There is players every year because we're talking and we're talking about, unfortunately, a low-income family puts one kid into the NFL, into college in the NFL. He becomes rich, and all the people around him kind of push him in the wrong direction. It's a terrible scenario. I really honestly wish there was a way that we could fix it. But when they have all this money around them, they get in trouble. Harris for the Chiefs 2 years ago. Backup tight end for the Chiefs. Was out driving around. Speeding. Got pulled over. Got charged for possession of marijuana. It was not a headline story because he's a backup tight end. Zeke is a premier player, and arguably so because he puts it out on the field. That's why we hear about all this stuff over and over.
You're under a microscope.
You think he's the only NFL player that has charges against him? Absolutely not.
No, I think it's almost half of NFL players. It was either half or a third. I don't remember. I'm
It's
going
high.
off memory here.
It's high.
Wind up with some sort of run-in with the law before they leave the league. So it's not special to him. Do we magnify it because he's a good player? I think a little bit. I do. Going forward here, Sharif says any running back can run well with that offensive line. And that is one thing to trade him. If you do, and you can get the max value out of him at this point in his career, if you can rip a team off to move Zeke Elliott on, and then you just go put, I mean, look at Kansas City. We were talking about Kareem Hunt being, he's a great running back. You were telling me he's a top 5 running back in the league.
Yes.
And what happened when Damian Williams came in? We're seeing similar production almost in yards per carry and everything out of a guy you've never heard of.
We heard of him, but we'll give him.
Well, no, you heard of him. If you asked me who Damian Williams was, I would have said, wasn't that like the Titans receiver from the 3rd round, like 12 years ago?
He will find his way in 16 games this year if he can stay healthy. I'm trying to think how I want to put it. Is I would literally give a 1st round this year and next year to trade for Zeke Elliott for the Kansas City Chiefs, because adding him into a team that is, I say this the best way I can, is the Chiefs are just a smidge ahead of the Cowboys, and it's because of the quarterback situation. But you sit there and you put Zeke into my locker room and the Chiefs locker room, this team became the favorite to win a Super Bowl. To pull Zeke away from the Cowboys, your team now, I don't even know if they make the playoffs. To trade him, regardless of the value you have of him.
Well, let me say this: if the offensive line bounces back, I know they had it down here, but they were hurt.
Though.
I get it. But I know the offensive line was hurt last year. If they bounce back to what they were in 2017 and before that, I don't think it matters who runs the rock. I really don't. I think you're going to get 4 or 5 yards a carry, and you're still going to have success with that. You now have Amari Cooper to stretch the field. You can succeed without Zeke Elliott. And if you trade him right now and you get a couple first-round picks and this team gets better because of it, it's an option. It is. It is an option. You have to think about that. Do I think it's going to happen in Dallas? Of course not. Jerry Jones has more pride than anything else. I think he's going to say, we're going to keep this boy in Dallas because we want to win some. We want to win some games. Also, like Kenny said, give him the money and let's go try for 6 more rings. That's exactly how Jerry Jones is thinking too. I think you guys are 100% on the same page. The question is going to be, what is the number that gets everybody happy, and can you afford it when you're paying everybody else? Because there's only so much money to go around. I complain about this all the time. It's all about value versus what you're paying for.
Yeah.
When you overpay a running back, even as good as Zeke Elliott, you're eventually going to come up to that defensive player that you can't keep. Maybe it's Van Der Esch down the road. Maybe it's one of these guys like DeMarcus Lawrence that needs a new contract 2 or 3 years from now. Eventually, there's not going to be enough money for everybody. You need to decide, is running back an important enough position to pay?
Sharif says he can see the Texans trade Lamar and some picks. He's saying Watson, Hopkins, and Zeke in Houston will be nasty. That would be because you would like to see that.
Well, I think that'd be good too. If I'm Houston, I'm on the phone.
Yeah,
just
but there's
keep
no
him
way.
in Dallas. Move conferences, but keep him in the same state. I would be on the phone right away.
That's even Zeke's scenario where he would like that as well. He doesn't have to move too far. No, there's no way, man. That's not going to happen. No. There's no way. To trade him in-state?
I don't think Lamar Miller's part of that trade. That's the biggest no way. You're cross-conference.
There's no way.
Well, here's the thing. You're cross-conference. You don't care what the Houston Texans do.
Yes,
you're not going
you
to see them until
do,
the Super
because
Bowl.
it's in the same state.
It's the Texas rivalry that you play once every 4 years.
It's the same scenario. It's the same scenario
not
with the
college
Oakland
football.
Raiders and the San Francisco 49ers.
I'm saying
It
let
is
the
the
water go
exact
under the
same
bridge.
scenario.
If they're giving you more to send them to Houston, you send them
The
to
same
Houston.
scenario with Kansas City and the St. Louis Rams when that was it.
Look, he's not going to Philadelphia. He's not going to Washington because it matters what those teams do against Dallas. It does not matter if the Houston Texans win 15 games or 5 to the Dallas Cowboys because it doesn't matter. I really don't think it. I don't think it matters. Yeah, you want to be the best team in the state, but if you're going to trade Zeke Elliott and they give you more, you should 100% consider the Houston Texans as a viable landing spot because on the field, this will not affect your team, and that's all I care about. That is all I care about.
Ian says Kansas City isn't a player development off the field. They would fail Zeke, unfortunately.
That is okay. He's got a point. Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt. We've not done a great job of keeping these Kansas City Chiefs out of trouble.
Let me just
go ahead.
Let me just pump the brakes here for a second.
You can swing at this, but you're gonna miss.
No. What unfortunately has happened for the Kansas City is top players in their team have failed that team. You cannot sit there and blame the development off the field because when they leave that facility, they are no longer being coached.
Okay.
And to sit there and say Hill and Kareem they got failed by Kansas City Chiefs, that's like, Ian, you getting off of your work, driving home, striking a car and killing somebody, and then going, your job failed, Ian, because he didn't do this. And I know that's two different things, but I'm trying to put it in perspective.
Okay.
Ian, if you went home and beat your wife, your job did not fail you because you beat your wife.
Not that he's saying you would, but okay. I said you'd swing and a miss. That was an intentional walk. You did okay there, Drew. You did okay. That was an intentional walk. I'm not saying you ripped a home run.
Let's bring up Pac-Man Jones.
But
let's bring up all these other players. Let's bring up the guy from.
But it's not one.
The San Francisco 49ers who went to the Redskins. Is it two teams failing that guy?
But it's not one. It's multiple in a short period of time. So maybe there is some discipline
looks
issues.
worse than what it really is.
Maybe. It might be. It's been multiple now for Kansas City. Do I think it's the best scenario for him? No, especially when you're seeing a guy with all these issues like Zeke Elliott has. But you do have a point. At some point, these guys run their own lives. They have to be able to be responsible for their own choices. I will agree with you on that. I think you're 100% right on that. I'll give you a single. How about that? Not an intentional walk. That was a single. I said you're going to swing and a miss. I'll give you a single. But on the reverse, if you're Kansas City, do you want to bring in another attitude problem when you're already trying to contend with Tyreek Hill?
Martavius agrees with me. This is a great point. He says, it's like saying the Falcons failed Michael Vick for what he did.
True, but you also have a culture that you need to cultivate as a team. You do. And
Dude,
props to Kansas City. Let me finish real quick. Props to Kansas City, because when Kareem Hunt had all those issues and they looked like they were going to win a Super Bowl, they said, I don't care how good you are. You lied to us. It's unacceptable.
To be honest, that's the best way they could have done it.
I agree.
I did not like that.
But when you already have a locker room of problems, and I'm not saying they do, but they have multiple guys that have had problems now with Tyreek Hill on top of it, and it's in such a short span of time, there can be a discipline issue, and adding another guy like Zeke Elliott that has problems can be an issue.
Greg Hardy's another great...
Well, okay, Dallas has its own issues too, right? Zeke Elliott, we had Dak Prescott and all the strip clubs early on in his career, everything else. He had a bunch of problems with discipline beforehand. Greg Hardy saying, pick which gun you want me to kill you with to his girlfriend. That's an issue too, right? I mean, we've had a lot of issues.
Ian says,
Dallas.
but his job doesn't pay people to mentor and monitor them, though. Let me tell you this right now. All that stops when the season ends because there is no communication between team and player during the offseason.
And you're not paying guys to follow them around 24/7. Look at Kareem Hunt. I will give you that.
I get it, Ian. You're right. Your job probably doesn't do that. But let's all be men here and completely honest, guys. What my job thinks what I am at work is nothing what I am in my personal life. I mean, that's just really honest.
I agree.
I know you're the exact same way with your job. Who you are outside of your job is not who you are in real person. I mean, that's in real life. That's not what it is. And that's exactly what these young men who have money are doing.
And don't know what to do with it.
Exactly. That's why I wish that was the focus of the NFL.
And they have whatever, like classes and stuff like that. But it's hard to tell an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old who doesn't know any different, and you throw millions right in his hands right away. Hey, be responsible with this. It is. It's hard to tell a 27-year-old or a 30-year-old who's never had money. Hey, here's millions of dollars. Be smart with it, kiddo. That's tough. That is. It's 100%. I'm right there with you. What are we talking about?
I don't know.
Look, Zeke, before he holds out, because we got to move on. I know this is weird doing the news at the end. Zeke, before he moves on, Dallas should either trade him or sign him to a new contract, because I don't want to see a Le'Veon Bell situation when this team is ready to move on to the playoffs and they're ready to make an impact here. I don't want to see him stuck in limbo like the Steelers were last year, where they're just going to let him hold out. Pick one, commit, and be done with it.
You pay the guy. If you sit there and trade him, your team is no longer a relevant Super Bowl contender. You'll be lucky enough just to make the playoffs. Pay the guy. He is the best offensive weapon you have.
I'm saying think about it. He's a running back. Running backs are a dime a dozen. I still believe in that. Are they going to be as good as Zeke? No. Can they be 85% of Zeke for much less money? Yes, they can. So think about it. I'm all for paying him. If they get a deal worked out, I'm cool with it.
Would you take him on your Titans team?
But they're already hard up for money. Would I take him over? Would I take him if I had to lose Kevin Byard and some of these other defensive players? Probably not. Not for running backs.
No, I'm just talking about in the sense of a running back.
If I could have him Madden style where money doesn't matter, yeah. But would I take him if I had to pay him $20 million a year? $18 million a year? We do, for now. That's going to change here in a minute when we give Marcus a new 5-year, $180 million contract. But Again, it's all about what you want to spend your money on. And that's one of my biggest talking points in anything in the NFL. Think about it, then get the deal done.
Right.
If you're Dallas. Let's talk about CP3. We're going to talk about a little bit of basketball today because it's been all football to this point. Chris Paul, like I said, is unable to find a trade from the Thunder because nobody wants a 34-year-old diminishing asset at this point in his career, and nobody's willing to pay the Thunder multiple first-round picks to get it. There's talk now he might start the season as an Oklahoma City Thunder. Is that okay?
Okay. I mean, it has to be.
Well, it has to be, but you just traded Russell Westbrook.
He's the only one in your organization that people might want to go see.
But probably won't, because the rest of the team stinks. You're not going to be winning games with CP3.
No.
Yeah. So my point is, when you made this deal, you understood that we need to move Chris Paul, and we need to have that trade pretty much done and dusted before we make this happen. I wasn't crazy about what they got for Russell Westbrook. I thought it was incredibly low. Only 2 first-round picks, 5 or 6 years out. I think that was nothing for Houston, right? Or nothing for Houston to give up to bring in someone like Westbrook. I think that Houston won that trade, and everyone was telling me they're going to trade Chris Paul. It's going to be okay. If that happens, and they get 2 first-round picks out of this guy, I'm going to say the Thunder won. Yeah. And they have 8 first-round picks now they didn't have before, okay? They've done okay. But if you're stuck with this contract for 2 or 3 years, you lose. It's going to wreck your franchise because no one's going to want to go play there for the next 2 or 3 years. You're going to have to use those picks to build guys instead of trading those picks
that's their plan
to
anyways.
lure a star. It shouldn't be. Not in today's NBA. Because those draft picks are like 10, 20% chance you get a star out of it.
I get it, but at some point in time, they're going to sit there and have to draft somebody with those picks and develop those players.
And Ian says CP3 3 years ago, maybe. Not now. And that's the trap Houston fell into. And I was complaining about it back then. Yeah. I was telling my old boss before he was swearing me up and down that I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about. You can't trade for this old of a guy getting a sign and trade max contract and not have negative repercussions towards the end of that. And now now OKC has bailed Houston out and said, we'll eat that contract.
And let's be completely honest, though. No one saw Chris Paul decline this aggressively. Oh, come on.
I did. He's not trash, right? He's not like, he has no value anymore. He's not Carmelo Anthony on a max
But he was
contract
considered one of the best point guards
when we saw it
in the league.
Right. But you have to
We thought there would be somewhat of a decline, but not this much of a decline.
At the time, when Golden State was dominating everything, I said they're giving up the last 3 years of this contract to beat Golden State in the first 2. And then they didn't do it. And when they didn't do it, I said, man, they tied themselves to a boat anchor that's going to drag them down. But then they found the bigger sucker. And that's like the Economist's guide to being successful. Always find a bigger sucker than you. And they dealt him to OKC and said, don't worry, you can trade him. So give us we'll give you these 2 trash first-round picks that probably won't be worth anything at the time. You give us Russell Westbrook, so the money's about the same, and we'll let you take CP3. Then what happened? Now you can't deal him all of a sudden? Look, I think this is a big story. I really do. I think this is hurting the Thunder for their rebuilding because if you can't deal this guy, if you're stuck with CP3 for 3 years because nobody wants a declining talent worth that much money, you're gonna reset. You're gonna stall out your rebuilding. Now you have to spend those picks because you won't sign any free agents. Just like this year, guys will turn their nose up at teams that have that much money dedicated to somebody who's not helping out enough. Right? I mean, that's how you be good in the NBA. You lure free agents. They can't lure a free agent with CP3 on the roster, in my opinion. Yeah. So you have to find a bigger sucker than Oklahoma City to take this contract on that thinks they can win but won't with CP3.
I agree.
All right. So
are you happy?
No, I'm not happy because I thought I wanted the Thunder to not make that move and get rid of Westbrook. I was like, that was dumb. And then what happened?
Well, he didn't want to be there.
Too bad. Neither did Westbrook. Too bad. Find somebody else. Somebody else will buy Westbrook.
Didn't want to be there.
Okay, so find somebody else to trade him to. Doesn't have to be Houston for 2 picks that don't matter. Trade him to Phoenix. Trade him to somebody else.
They could pull this off where no one can see it coming, where these picks literally all of them work out and this becomes an elite team in Oklahoma.
Now Sharif is saying CP3 and Dennis Schroeder will be okay. I'm not buying it. No, you're talking about a 34-year-old guy. This is the best you're going to get out of this contract. And this year, is he going to be good enough to compete in the West? No. Absolutely
Ian's saying at best maybe finish 9th.
In the West? Yeah, I'm with him. I think at best you're talking about a 10th place finish because you sold the rest of this roster. You have no stars. And the West is absolutely great. If you were in the East, I'd say maybe you could hang on and make the playoffs. Yeah. But right at this point, you're going to miss the playoffs, and then everyone else that is going to be a free agent in 2020 is going to be saying, why do I need to play with Chris Paul when there's 5, 6, 7 other teams that have better playoff chances, that have the money, that can sign me instead? They're going to miss out because of this move. They are, absolutely. I think right now, my whole point is we need to move on.
All right, guys. Well, I think that will wrap it up for us and Sports Around the Bar.
We're still live. We're still good. I know my thing reset, but that's okay. Facebook, I think, was just messing with us.
What else we got?
One more thing. Before we move on, before we go to our final thoughts here, I want to talk about the Falcons re-signing Deion Jones, and then we'll move on. Deion Jones, heart and soul of the defense. They gave him a 4-year, $57 million contract, 34 of it guaranteed. Young player. This is the move they should have made instead of the Chris Paul move. I would have rather them see them sign Deion Jones, okay? I love this move for the Falcons. He's the heart and soul of the defense. You paid a young player who's going to be good through that 4-year deal. Fantastic move. They just paid Grady Jarrett. They just paid Deion Jones. Things are looking up for Atlanta. Martavis,
I thought we already talked about this.
We didn't, but now we will. Great move. Can't criticize it. But now, Drew, since you're ready to get out of here, man, let's do some special thanks.
Oh. Can I say something about Deion Jones?
You may not. You may do some special thanks and we can move on. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you're right. No, you're 100% right. The great Jarrett, Deion Jones, that's your heart and soul of this defense. If these guys can stay healthy, like I said many times before, I think the Falcons could be a great team this year, just depending. But that's it for us, Sports Around the Bar, guys. We appreciate all your likes, shares, and comments. It means the world to us. We appreciate all that you guys do in and out of the show with all the commentary on our posts. It means the world to us again. Thank you, Ian, Sonny, Danny, Alex, Jeremy, Travis, Martavius, Deo, Will, Sharif, Kenny. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, guys. We appreciate each and every one of the comments, the shares, the likes. You help make the show go, and we appreciate each and every one of you for that. So for Sports Around the Bar, I am Jake, your bartender. This is Drew. We'll be back on Friday to talk about another NFL team, as well as everything else going on in the world of sports. So we will see you then. I can't wait.
See ya.